This is a video for Chapter 4 using if statements. We're going to use both compound and a big nested if structure in order to solve this problem. The user is supposed to enter their first name, middle name, and last name separated by a space. So I've declared variables for first, middle, and last and asked the user to enter those names. Then I've echo printed what the user put in. Then a label, here's your name in alphabetical order, and then we are into the nested if block. The first if is a compound if using the two ampersands, which are AND in C. Both conditions must be true for the whole thing to be true. So what we're asking here is the first name less than the middle name, and is the first name less than the last name? If that's true, then the first name should be the first printed alphabetically. Notice there is no line feed at the end of this line because I want to print out the name all on one line. Once I've determined that first is the first name that should print, I'm inside a block of statements here, so I've got another if, and I'm checking to see if middle is less than last. If that's true, then it should print out in the order first, middle, last. However, if it's false, it defaults down through the else clause and we get first, last, middle. That takes care of that option. This else right here belongs to the nearest prior if that doesn't have an else. That's this one. And they're lined up so that you can see that. So what I'm checking for here is if middle is less than first and middle is less than last. If that's true, middle is the first one that should print alphabetically. Then I've got to determine the second and third. So I'm asking if first is less than last. If that's true, then it would print middle, first, last. If it's false, it'll print middle, last, first. Then we've got another else right here, which goes to the nearest prior if that doesn't have an else. That is this one, and they are lined up so that you can see that. And by default, once it gets down to here, if it's failed this if and the if up here, by default, last should print first, and that's what happens here. Then it's just a process of using an if to determine whether first or middle should print second or third. So it prints last. If first is less than middle, then the order is last, first, middle. If that is false, then it's going to print last, middle, first. Don't forget that there's a copy of this, a hard copy of this in the video folder so that you can look at the code and kind of walk through it. It has been debugged and compiled, so I'm going to run it a couple of times so you can see how it works. I'll use my own name the first time, and you can see that it should print out in the order after I hit the enter key, Ann Nancy Thomas, which it does. The alphabetical order is Ann Nancy Thomas. I'm going to run it again, and I'm going to use Gilbert Taylor Crenshaw as the name. And this one really does have to reverse because it should print out Crenshaw, Gilbert, Taylor. So when I press the enter key, it will echo print the name Gilbert Taylor Crenshaw and then give it to me in alphabetical order as Crenshaw, Gilbert, Taylor. So this program uses compound if statements as well as a nested if block.